When Aston Martin revealed its first SUV, the DBX, I was a little bit skeptical. I thought, man, Aston Martin is copying every other ultra exotic luxury automaker like Lamborghini and Bentley and foraying into the world of SUVs and tarnishing its brand. And then I drove the DBX and my mind was completely changed. It drove just like I expected an Aston Martin to do, just a little bit taller and more practical. And then Aston Martin went ahead and improved that with an even faster model called the DBX 707. And that model was so popular that for the 2025 facelift, the first of the DBX life cycle, they have actually decided to get rid of the base model and instead only sell this 707 model. Today we are going to look at all of the changes that Aston Martin has made on this refreshed DBX. I definitely had some issues with the pre-facelift model, so let's see if Aston Martin listened to my complaints and finally made this the perfect luxury sport SUV. Let's begin with a quick little walk around of the 2025 DBX 707. The changes aren't huge here on the outside. This one is finished in this absolutely gorgeous and very eye-catching shade of Synapse Orange. It's got this very metallic-y flake into it. It absolutely pops and it just looks super cool out on the road. We've got an all black grille here. You can get silver streaks on that. Honestly, that is how I would do it. I don't love this all black because this is a really good looking grille and it just kind of hides a lot of the details there. We do have a new Aston Martin logo. They changed their logo up a little bit. Again, this is all black, but you can get it in different colors as well. Can barely notice that it's a new logo, if I'm being honest. The traditional Aston Martin wings always look great. This is a really, really cool looking vehicle. You can get 22 or 23-inch wheels. I'm not a huge fan of this matte black finish. They just get really dirty and they show all of the dirt. They do look really cool with the orange brake calipers matching this orange exterior though. One of the changes that Aston Martin points out here on the 2025 model is that the mirror is now kind of this flush piece here. You can see that the glass does not actually move. Instead, the whole mirror mechanism actually moves, which is kind of a neat touch. The door handles also pop out, which is a nice touch. You used to have to like hold your finger and then pull this. Now there is a motor in there that pops out. So that is a nice quality of life issue. I'm assuming owners were complaining about how annoying it was to get in and out of their DBXs. And then here at the back, we've got that crazy cool hump here at the back, very similar to the Vantage sports car, where you have kind of this bump here in the middle. We've got Aston Martin written out there. We also have some really nice quad exhaust tips. We do also have a tow hitch. This vehicle is rated to tow 6,000 pounds, which is a really nice touch. And then they have made some small alterations to this really cool looking spoiler here at the back, giving the DBX 707 just a really unique look, almost kind of like a Ford Escort Cosworth with that kind of lower spoiler down here and then kind of the upper spoiler up there. This is a gorgeous looking SUV, one of the best looking ones on the market, and Aston Martin hasn't tampered with that too much, which is a great thing. Now moving on from the exterior, because the interior is where Aston Martin has made most of the changes on this 2025 DBX. And if you thought the exterior was crazy, just wait until you get inside this car. We've got a matching all orange interior. This is one of the craziest interiors that I've ever seen. Aston Martin brought out the Skittles colors here. We've got orange leather on the pillars, orange leather on the headliner, orange leather on the seats with this really nice piping. We've got perforation, heated and ventilated seats here with the Aston Martin wings, again in orange there. They also brought along a red car that has all red seats. They brought some green cars that do not have green leather, but they do have blue leather, which is really quite cool. So this just shows how custom you can make one of these DBXs if you are willing to go the extra mile and go a little bit crazy. We even have some orange here, leather wrapped around the seatbelt buckle. I'm telling you, this is just crazy. So now let's get in, close the door. We've got some nice carbon fiber finish, but again, you can choose whatever you want. You can get woods, you can get aluminums, you can get so many different things here on this interior. Now we've got the engine stop start button here in the middle now. You'll notice that is different from how it used to be in the DBX. You used to have kind of your push button set up. We do not have that anymore. Now our gear selector is going to be down here with this little joystick, very similar to what you'd get in something like a Porsche 911. Just push down into drive, push it up into reverse, nice 360 camera, push P for park. We have a button to put us into manual mode, big, nice, gorgeous paddle shifters. Now, they are not column mounted shifters, but they are about as good as wheel mounted paddle shifters can be. We do have a digital gauge cluster here. You can have good information up here as well. You can change how they look around the engine start button. You have your drive mode selector, only 3 modes to choose from: GT, Sport, and Sport Plus. And when I tell you that the click that this thing makes, I'm going to get the mic as close as I can to it, so hopefully you can hear it. Oh, it is the most satisfying click. I don't know how long they spent engineering this, but I could use this forever. This is the clickiest, nicest knob that I have experienced in a car in a long time. And I know I've spent probably way too long talking about a knob in a vehicle, but it is that good. So you've got your different modes. This is going to be your Sport Plus mode. You're going to get red gauges. Go ahead and put it back into Sport. You actually get green gauges, and then your GT is going to be kind of this bronze here. The other big upgrade that we're going to have for the 2025 model year is we now have this 10.12-inch touchscreen here. So the previous generation DBX did not have a touchscreen. You had sort of the Mercedes style controller. It was annoying to use. This is not the best infotainment system ever. I'm not going to go ahead and lie and tell you that. But now that it is a touchscreen and it does have wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, it is good enough. Don't care. Easy enough to use. Put it on CarPlay. Don't ever have to think about it again. This is probably the biggest weak point of the car, and Aston Martin has done more than enough to fix it. I am perfectly happy with how this system functions now. That is the last thing that I really had a big complaint on in the DBX. So we're all good there. We also have plenty of buttons. You've got your temperature dials. These also feel really nice. They have a nice knurling to them. They feel really clicky. You have a volume knob. You do have a few touch capacitive buttons for things like the heated and ventilated seats. Don't love those. I have turned my heated seat on a very hot day by accident, simply by like resting my hand near those. You can see I just turned on the heated seat. That's not that great, but it is not a deal breaker for me. Honestly, if that's like the worst of the complaints with the DBX, I think Aston Martin did a great job. The other thing that I love about the DBX is that this is not a sports car masquerading as an SUV. You get some genuine practicality here. This back seat, we've got more of the gorgeous orange leather. I'm going to go ahead and step inside to show you that the legroom in here is really good. We have some nice door handles. The old door handles were kind of like hinged the wrong way. So you used to have to pull like this and then push. It was really awkward. This door handle feels a lot more premium than the old one. It has a nice metallic finish and it actually opens the correct way. We do have some nice luxuries back here. I do have my own air vents. I have heated and ventilated seats back here. I've got USB ports as well. Nothing crazy in terms of screens or anything like that, but I do have a nice panoramic roof. It is one solid big piece of glass. I can go ahead and open that up for you just to demonstrate. So you might want some screens or something like that back here, but if you're this rich, you can afford to get your kids a couple of iPads. And look at that big old piece of glass. That lets a lot of sunlight into the cabin. It is a really nice, relaxing experience back here. For adults, for kids, what have you, this is a pretty nice back seat. Now, it's a similar story here in the back, where Aston Martin quotes just over 22 cubic feet of space here in the trunk. Plenty of room for a good number of suitcases. You can see that there is a pretty good distance from here to the back of the trunk. You've got your buttons here. You can go ahead and push those, and that will unlatch the 2 seats, which you can then fold. I don't have a quote for how much trunk space there is total, but pretty roomy back here. It is bigger than a Bentley Bentayga or a Lamborghini Urus, which I think are the key points where you need to be on a car like this. We've got this gorgeous leather cover here. You can go ahead and remove that if you want, but I love that it is color matched with the crazy orange. We do have controls for the air suspension right here that we can lift or lower this back end of the vehicle, and we do have our built-in umbrella. They know how to deal with rain in Britain, where the DBX is assembled. This really can do all of the things that you need it to do. All right, so now let's get behind the wheel of the all new, mostly refreshed 2025 Aston Martin DBX 707. And the interesting thing to note is that the base DBX is now gone. I spoke to the chief engineer of this car who told me that as soon as the DBX 707 came out, they just had such high demand for it that they were wondering whether or not, oh, is this just a new thing and people really want it? But the demand never really trailed off. So it just didn't make sense to sell the regular DBX and this one. So the old 542 horsepower version of the DBX, that is no longer available. This 707 model is the only way to get it, and that is completely fine with me, because this is how the DBX was always meant to be enjoyed. We've got a twin turbo 4-liter V8 with a hot V, turbochargers in the middle of the cylinder configuration. It produces not 707 horsepower as the name would imply, although on the European scale it is 707 horsepower. Here it is 697, as near as makes no difference. 700 horsepower, 663 pound-feet of torque. This thing, oh yes, is an absolute monster. Now, the big difference between the outgoing DBX, the regular one, and the 707 model when that was first introduced was the transmission. They were both 9-speed automatics, although this is a very different kind of automatic transmission. Whereas the regular DBX had a conventional torque converter like you'd expect from an automatic, this one actually has the Mercedes MCT, multi-clutch transmission. So instead of a torque converter, it has a wet clutch that gives this kind of the feel and presence of a dual clutch transmission, but it still gives you that smoothness of an automatic. And when you do take manual control over it, you get quick rips of the shifts. They're fantastic. One of the better automatic transmissions that I've used. Now, we have 3 simple drive modes here. You've got the GT mode, which keeps everything super duper comfortable. We've got the sport mode, which I'm in now, and I'm actually going to go ahead and crank it one more time into the Sport Plus setting. Oh. Oh. Now, I should have mentioned that this engine is sourced from AMG. It does sort of sound like an AMG motor. Aston Martin has its own specific tuning. The chief engineer actually told me that for this new 2025 DBX, one of the things that they changed in the Sport and Sport Plus modes is that they wanted it to sound that good earlier. So one of the problems that people complained about with the car was that it sounded great when you got on the throttle, but when you were at the low ends of the RPMs, it just didn't sound like it had like a noisy, rumbly V8, and they've changed that. So now, even though I'm not all the way at the top, oh yeah, I still get that nice V8 growl. The steering is absolutely great. It's very Aston Martin steering, and that is to say it's not the sharpest of any automaker. I think Porsche does this a little bit better than Aston Martin, but it's balanced. This is the type of car that you can do a road like this, super windy, but then you can hop on the highway and be perfectly straight and comfortable at 80, 90, or even 100 miles an hour. No vibrations through the wheel, just enough feedback through it. It really is a great grand tourer, which is what Aston Martins are all about. We've got 4-corner air suspension here, and I gotta give Aston Martin credit for how good the DBX both handles and cushions its occupants. These roads are super fun, but they are not the best paved out there, and we have been enjoying this car without it beating the crap out of us. We've gone over some bumps and undulations, and the air suspension just keeps us super tight and level. We also have a 48-volt mild hybrid system, and that is used to power an anti-roll system in the suspension. So when I take this corner just a little bit too fast, oh my gosh, it just stays so flat and level. You know, when I first drove a DBX, I actually questioned if this would have been better as a Rapide, as like a long wagon-like sedan, you know, lower to the ground. But then I drove the DBX for a week, and then I drove the 707, and I thought, I don't really think you lose anything with this being an SUV. It might be higher off the ground, and you can sometimes feel that. But really, if you know, sort of blindfolded me while driving, not well recommended, I think I would tell you that I'm just driving a DB12 right now. It really doesn't print like an SUV from here behind the wheel. It does that better than almost any SUV I've ever driven. It's just so good. And in terms of performance, the 707 is really up there with the best of the best in terms of performance. We've got 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. I recorded a 3.27 run earlier in the day, so I definitely believe that 3.1 is fully possible. We've got a top speed of 193, which definitely comes in handy when you're running the kids to school in the morning. You got to be able to go 193 miles an hour. But then when you're all done, you can just put it back in GT mode, and this thing just becomes an excellent luxury car. Great handling, great steering, super soft air suspension. It's quiet and luxurious in here as well. It really is all things to all people. All right, so that is going to wrap up our time with the facelifted 2025 Aston Martin DBX 707. This is an expensive SUV. There's no two cents about it. This is a $250,000 starting price, and the one that we've been driving today costs about 350 grand. There's a lot of other SUVs that you can get for that money. In fact, there are a lot of SUVs that you could probably buy and have a sports car in the garage next to it for less than this. But if you are looking for a vehicle that can do everything, it can be the SUV, it can be the sports car, all in one vehicle. I don't know if I've ever driven anything that is quite as compelling as the DBX 707. It's luxurious, it's comfortable, it finally has technology that doesn't feel like it's 10 or 15 years out of date. It's honestly about as perfect as an SUV can get. Aston Martin listened to all of the things that they needed to change and then went ahead and changed them on an SUV that was already so great to drive and just had some quality of life enhancements that needed to be done, and now they are. And I really hope you've enjoyed this review of the 2025 Aston Martin DBX 707. For more videos like it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos, and I'll see you next time.